Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Language Central Accessibility Fundamentals Workshop. Today we're going to talk about accessibility tips and tricks for the web, Sakai, Microsoft Office, and Google Docs. And you're going to learn how to provide people with disabilities equal access to your web and course content. And we are so lucky to have Joel Crawford Smith who here to tell us all these things. And he is the Senior Web Accessibility Administrator here at Duke. Thanks so much, Joel.
Sure. Yeah, like you said, I'm Joel Crawford Smith, the Senior Web Accessibility Administrator. That's for the public-facing websites at Duke. We also have the Disability Management System, who handles accommodations for students specifically, but I'm the public-facing stuff, and I do a ton of trainings, like this one. I guess we'll get started here. So we're going to talk about Microsoft Office, which will, is going to include both Word and PowerPoint. Google Docs, which also is very similar. Docs, for the slides, some Sakai stuff, and just general web content things. Next slide here. Here we go. So first, I just want to say that many people with sensory impairments take our classes. We're not doing all of this accessibility work just for people who are blind or just for people who are deaf. We all live on this continuum of being able and less able to do things like see, hear, walk, read, print, mental health. No one on this Zoom is 100% able in every one of these areas. And even people with glasses or contacts. Without your glasses or contacts, you are less able to see. But whenever we provide, you have glasses, you're able to see. So whenever we make these accessibility things for our sites, we're providing glasses to people with various disabilities. People who are blind will have similar glasses, so they have equal access. Just quickly, how do we measure if content is accessible? There is something called the World Wide Web Consortium, and everybody does what they say. And they've got something called the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. It's a set of rules, and if like a website or content passes the guidelines, it's accessible to people with a wide variety of disabilities. So this is why we kind of use these as kind of a general, just our general rules to follow. You'll hear me call it WCAG. Sometimes I'll call it WCAG or WCAG. So I'll try to say WCAG when we're in here. They're basically broken down into 4 principles. Perceivable, that things can be seen with a wide variety of senses, so you don't have to be fully sighted or hear. Operable, that things can be used by people who use mice, people who can't use mice. Understandable, so that it's easy to read. Predictable, and also robust, meaning that the content can be used by people who are maybe need screen readers or something. Now, I'm going to start with alt text. Don't tune me out quite yet. I think you might learn something here about alt text if you haven't heard of it before. I think a lot of us that have inserted an image in a web browser, like or a content management system. So we've got the website toolbar insert image button, and it looks a little different in different content management systems. In WordPress, it'll be it's always kind of hidden somewhere. In Drupal and Sakai, it says alternative text, and in the newer Drupal sites, it looks a little different. But it's always there, and it always is called alternative text or alt text. So that's what we're looking for. And we need to provide alternative text so people who use screen readers can use the web and use our content. In Microsoft Office, you can also add alt tags. It's a little different though. It looks different and it's kind of hidden. You might not have actually seen this before. If you right click on an image, there's an edit alt text, and it'll open up this dialog box on the side instead of like overlaid like we maybe are used to seeing. In Google Docs, it's very similar. You right click, you can find the alt text, and it'll pop open this window, and the title is what your alt text would be. But let's learn about some alt text tips from this dashing photo of Brad Pitt. So alt text depends on context. And this will be important for your classes too. So in the context of a news story about Brad Pitt, alternative text of the word man isn't very good. It's not going to help anything. A lot of people will just put in one word whenever they do alternative text. If we have a biography of Brad Pitt, man in front of green wall with a Z on it, that's not really helpful either. So even though it's trying to be extremely descriptive, it's not being descriptive of the thing that matters in the photo. Brad Pitt at a movie premiere. Some good alt text would be Brad Pitt at the premiere of World War Z. I would spell it correctly though, instead of with one T. If you have advertisement for hats, Brad Pitt wearing a golf hat from Target. GQ article about facial hair, Brad Pitt wearing a fashionable goatee. So all of these different contexts will change your alt text. Maybe something a little more specific for a class. Graphics, often you'll have maybe a pie chart or something. And some alternative text for that, what you would want to do is describe it. Like if you just close your eyes and try and describe what is happening here. In this example, it says the chart shows November pie sales and the percentages, cherry 43%, peach 31. So it describes everything about it. So if you couldn't see, you would completely have the same access to the information. And this one's a little less well-known. We have to be aware of images of text because a screen reader software can only read real text on a page. Screen readers can't read text inside of an image because it's just pixels to them. So if we had an image like this, advertising, a person who's blind would not be allowed to attend the event because they wouldn't know it exists. They wouldn't know the location of the event, what time the event is, or even how to register for the event. If this was for an assignment, they'd fail the assignment. But sometimes maybe it's possible that an image, it's unavoidable not to have some text in it. You'd want to put all that text adjacent to the image so they have equal access. In this example, you can see that it's really hard to read. A lot of times putting text on top of an image, inside of image, will be hard to read because the background colors change. And so I can read the word location here, but I can't read it over here. So it's just kind of bad for everyone. Even sighted users have a hard time with text inside of an image sometimes. There's always an exception to the rule though. Oh, and one last thing, sometimes people will use an auto translator on a website or something. Auto translators can't translate the text inside of the image either. Being good for accessibility is good for internationalization of content. So videos and multimedia. By the way, if anybody has any questions, jump in and just ask, or you can hold them till the end. And if it's a question I can't answer, I'll let you know about that too. So we'll talk about videos and multimedia. This is one of those perceivable time-based media, something we have to be mindful of. There's two kinds of captions. There's something called burned-in captions and closed captions. Closed captions are whenever you can click the button and toggle the visibility in like YouTube. A burned-in caption is kind of like burning. It's like sort of like text inside an image, except it's not a bad thing, inside the video. So your video, you couldn't turn them off. They're just actually on there as part of the video. And that can be helpful. I've done that for some of my videos where I'll burn in the captions because my video editing software allows me to do that. And so maybe if you have someone else who's doing your videos or maybe you're a video editor, you could burn in your captions. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially with multilingual. It might be easier, for something that you're going to keep around a while. If you're in YouTube and you own your video, you can add multiple languages. I was checking out a video that was mixed with English and Spanish in the same video. and it wasn't able to do both. It did good on the Spanish if it was set to Spanish, or English on the English, but not both. But if you choose the primary language, you can edit these captions in YouTube if you own the video, and it'll open up a little very user-friendly caption editor. And you could go in and fix, if it's primarily in French, set it to French, it'll auto do your French pretty good. And then you can change the English parts that aren't correct in here. After you get in there, it's pretty nice to use, pretty user-friendly. Something that's very cool and pretty new this year is auto captioning subtitles in PowerPoint. This allows you to choose from a lot of languages, and it'll be similar to the way YouTube does it, where the primary language you choose will probably be very good, but the secondary language you speak will not be very good. But this is free, and part of it, you just go to the slideshow tab, and it'll be under subtitle settings. And I think it's super cool, and I think you should give it a shot. Another cool thing about it, though, is even when you're just speaking or other people are asking questions, it still translates it. It's very cool. All right, now we'll talk about headings. Making headings accessible to all. Headings are really important for navigation, for sighted users, and for screen reader users. You don't have to know HTML, but you need to know that there's code that makes a heading rather than just a paragraph. So whenever you choose a heading level, something's happening on the back end that makes it information available to screen reader users. I want to show you an example of the proper use of headings. This is a screen reader user browsing a web page that has good use of headings.
Headings menu. Heading level 1. Alice in Wonderland. Good accessibility example. Heading level 2. About the book. Heading level 2. Character list. Heading level 2. Plot summary. Heading level 3. Alice follows the white rabbit down a hole. Heading level 3. The caterpillar teaches Alice how to navigate Wonderland. Heading level 3. Cheshire Cat advises her to attend the tea party thrown by the March Hare. Heading level 3. Alice.
And the point of this is, if there's headings, a person who is blind can navigate this web page the same way a sighted user does, because sighted users browse pages by headings. And so that's how, if headings are used correctly, how nice it is. Now, let's say somebody does not use headings. Like in this example, somebody just made about the book bold, character list bold. They didn't actually make it a heading. So this is what would happen.
Alice in Wonderland. Poor accessibility example. You are currently on heading level 1. Headings menu.
There won't be any headings. So a blind screen reader user would not be able to navigate the document. So now we're going to talk about headings. Again, they're for screen reader users like we just saw, but they're also for sighted users. They provide an outline of what a document in the web page is at a glance, because nobody reads a web page from top to bottom. We're just scanning. In your normal content editor, I think we've all seen this, where we've got our headings. And this is where that information came from, heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. This made some code there that made that work. In Sakai, it's very different. There are 3 headings available. These are the only headings in Duke's version of Sakai: large, medium, and small. And it's not really about the size, it's about that this one is more important than this one and this one. These ones that say gray heading or green heading are not headings. They are decorations. So if you want to make sure your people can scan for headings, you want to use one of these 3. You can use this other stuff, but for headings of sections, we need that. There's 2 ways, you could make a page that looks like this, where it's got headings using all just colors. And it's pretty flashy, but I can't tell what the At a glance, you can't tell what's more important than the other thing. They're all just together. Now this is, at the bottom is not very flashy, but because the sizes of the words change, it makes it easier as an outline for me to view, okay, which parts are important, what parts am I going to skip over? So not flashy, but easier to read at a glance for sighted users. So in Word, it's different than Sakai as well. There's a really cool cheat code I want to show you about how to use headings, and it'll save you time actually. This is a recorded video and I hope it plays well. All right, here we have a typical document. I've already got some text in place. Normally people will try to make some things look like headings. So if I go here and I'm going to go through and just make some headings real fast for us, using the way somebody might typically do it. Here. Here we go. Now we have things that appear to look like headings. So check this out. If I go here to heading accessibility good and bad examples, I can mark it as a heading. Well, that doesn't look like I want it to look. No problem. You just right click, modify, and pick your colors that you wanted it to be. I wanted it to be 18 pixels and I wanted it to be bold. Okay. Excellent. Now I have a heading and you can see up here, it's in the styles pane for heading 1. And now it shows up as headings over here. So that's good, but what if I want more headings? Well, let's go here and say, I want this to be my heading 2. Well, that's easy enough. I right click here in the styles pane for heading 2. I say update heading to match selection. Done. Now I have headings. Well, down here though, I also have headings. No problem. I just click heading 2. I don't have to go over here. Cats is another one here. Let's do that. Let's make this our heading 3 style. So I will go to heading 3. I will right click and I will say update heading 3 to match selection. Excellent. Now on the right, you can see I've got accessibility good and bad. I've got heading examples. I have the word cats. I'm going to have cat city. I'm going to skip that one. I'm going to say I have dogs. And we'll go grab these last 2. Now this is the cheat code. Let's find out that my boss hates blue. I can go here to the blue. I know it's a heading. I can right click on that. I can modify and I can change it to any color I want. I'm going to make it orange. And I can say update automatically. It will go through the entire document and change every one of those to orange for me. You might say, so what? There's only 2 headings, but most of us make documents that are much larger than this. So imagine you got a 50-page document and you need to change this. Don't use this because you have all of the same options right here in this modify area, every one of those options. All right, we've got the NVDA screen reader open again. So let's see. Now we just made our own lives easier, but let's see what happens for the screen reader user now. Well, they have headings.
Heading level 2 heading examples. Heading level 3 cats. I love cats. Heading level 3 cat city. Cat city is a fun place to live. This is not a heading. It just has text with colors. Heading level 3 dogs. Dogs are cool too. Blank. Heading level 2 list item examples.
Okay, so I think you get the point there. That same cheat code that I just showed you in Word is also available in Google Docs, where you can just highlight something and you can update it to match whatever heading you want. So it's really going to save a lot of times. You don't have to noodle around so much with all these colors and things. You just do it once and there. And It really helps people with disabilities as well. List items. So this is making lists accessible for everyone. List items, this is unordered lists. This is a list item over here on the left. If a screen reader gets to this, it's going to say list 6 items. Item 1, these. Item 2 are. Using dashes is not a list item. This is just going to read dash these, dash are, dash not, dash list items. So we don't want to use dashes. We always want to use the options that we get. Same with list items with their numbered, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, rather than pushing our own numbers on there, because we might mess up and say 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, 5. Or you might add something in here and it'll mess them up. So it's good to use those list items. We'll talk about font sizes. There's no official font size for passing WCAG standards, but studies have shown the optimum size for text is 16 pixels with a line height of 1.5. Everyone prefers to read legible text. Nobody's happy when they can't read the text. Nobody's impressed when the text is too small to read. Whenever you're on a mobile device, small font sizes are even smaller, and it might make someone have to zoom in on a page. So choose the largest font sizes you comfortably can use. And the nice thing about larger text is that it also makes your links larger. 16 pixel text makes 16 pixel tall buttons to click or push for your link. Also helps you when you're walking around using your phone outside. You know, you're a little more clumsy. People with tremors, poor motor skills, people with bad vision have to use Zoom sometimes to see. Here's an example. Some of your students have to rely on something called a screen magnifier to read text. This is my niece. And there, see how large that text is? That's how they have to browse the web, like through a tiny pinhole, more or less. I know students at Duke right now who get through their classes like this. We'll talk about color contrast and being colorblind. This is making color legible for everyone. So color cannot be the only method to understand content. Maybe you played Super Mario Brothers and there was Mario and there was Luigi. One was red and one was green. But if you're completely colorblind, you can't tell who is Mario and who's Luigi. This is a problem that they had with Nintendo. Even if you're red-green colorblind, you still can't tell which is which. But if you're fully sighted, it's easy to tell. So how do you fix something like this? What Nintendo did in the next version was they made Luigi tall and they made Mario fat. So even if I'm colorblind, I still have some indication on what is what. And we got protanopia, red-green colorblind, and then of course full sight. So it's a win-win for everyone, and it's more fun to look at. Here's an example that might be more applicable to your real life as at the university. So here's our iPhone availability, and they just used a red light and a green light. So you can tell, we'll go to the next one. If you're completely colorblind, you can't tell where the iPhones are available or not. So how do you fix this? Because color's good. Color helps lots of people. So we add icons. So you still have the green, and you still have the red, which helps anyone who's not colorblind, but it's the symbols that let you do that. So it's the best of both worlds. You can make things better for everyone. Something that you might run into is people saying like choose, in the potential problems area, it says choose green for yes and red for no. And I have a click here button that's in the red and I have a click here in the green. So now we've learned that this is a problem because of the colorblind making color the only way to understand content. Also using color to make a heading more important than another heading is also an issue because that wouldn't work if you're colorblind. Some potential solutions, color is a good thing. We want to use color. So we say choose green for yes and red for no, and they're colored yes and no. So even if you're colorblind, no matter what color it is. if you're going to use these colors for making things important, you could say step 1, this is more important. Step 2, then do this. So we're using color, but we're also adding another indication. Contrast ratios are another thing, making things easy to read. With the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, there's a minimum contrast ratio that you have to meet. For small text, it has to be this 4.5. This isn't like I feel like I can read it. There's like a mathematical equation that can run on something. And larger text can have a lower one. But using good contrast is helpful for everyone. Here's an example of some bad contrast ratio where we have white text on a yellow background. Also another contrast ratio example of if I'm inside, I can see my text fine, but if I'm outside, I can't. So if I used higher contrast, I would have been able to read this website better. Any questions so far? All right, so let's talk about making interactions more accessible. I briefly talked about this, but we need to make it clear what people can click on. So sometimes you'll see underline under text. You'll know that that means I can click on it versus the body text. So it's important that maybe it's a different color or has an underline or anything that makes it distinguishable. So because not everyone has a mouse and can hover over things to look for what I can click on.
Can I just stop you there, Joel? I think we do
Yeah.
have a question.
Yeah.
Jamie, did you have a question?
Oh, sorry. I was just going to table it. I put that in the chat.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I just figured you might forget.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
I didn't understand the contrast ratio. We went through that really fast and I didn't know how we would even know
Yeah.
what ratio we have.
Yeah, you're right. So on websites, you know, we run them through these accessibility checkers and it automatedly goes through and checks all that for us. For our stuff that we're using, maybe for class, there's not really a thing to do that, but I do know that the contrast ratios that are chosen here in Sakai, that all of these do pass the contrast ratio requirements. So if you're in Sakai, you're doing it right.
Okay, so Sakai default's good.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
thanks.
everything there is all good.
Thank you.
Yeah. So making interactions more accessible. Yeah, the links, link text. This is like handing out speeding tickets at the Indy 500. Link purpose and ambiguous links. A lot of times people will just use the word here as the link, or more, or read more. Read more what? You know, it doesn't say what the link will do and where it will take the person. Some better alt text would be link text would be more news, or read the full article, or you can make whole sentences into links, like click here to read more about cats. Here's an example of using really good link text for a screen reader user.
Links menu. Link, skip to main content. Link, skip to main content. Alice in Wonderland. Good accessibility example, vertical line, accommodate web content. You are links menu. Link, skip, link is external. Red plus summary on Wikipedia. Link, Alice, link is external. Link, the white rabbit, link is external. Link, the Queen of Hearts, link is external. Link.
Okay, you get the point there. Those are very descriptive. I'm blind. I know exactly what the link does and where it will take me. Now here we are with our poor
Alice in Wonderland.
text.
Poor accessibility example, links menu. You are current link, skip, link, home, link is external, read more, link, 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 read more.
And we'd have the same problem with the word here. So like, if you want to go do this, click here. We want to make the whole sentence something. Okay, let's talk about tables. What makes a table a table? This is kind of like headings, where there's something going on in the background that makes something something. Tables need to have a table header, so we know what's going on inside of it. So this top one is slightly different than the other one, than the other rows. In Office, there's table header options where you can tell it the top is a header row and the first column on the side is a header left. Because sometimes you'd have left side headers and top headers, or just left and not top. You get to this just by, when you click on it, there'll be a table design tab that'll activate here in your, across the top where you've got your home, blah, blah, blah. It'll be table design. In Google Docs, table headers are not options. The best you can do is make your table header rows distinguishable, like maybe make them bold or make them, black, or something that makes that row look different than where the data is. In Sakai, you can do the great stuff. You can do great stuff. So here's our table. It's about dogs. If you right click on it, you can get to table properties, and it'll allow you to choose what is a header, first row, first column, whatever. It'll even allow you to add stripes. Super cool. It's got everything you need. So if you put in a table, though, make sure you go to table properties to tell it what is a header. Of course, there should be a header. Let's see, look at time. This one here is an example of why we need to make our tables accessible. One big issue that we have is whenever people merge cells, like on this table, you can see that the word cat here has merged cells, and then you have the word dog, which has merged cells. We want to avoid merging cells as always, pretty much. So here's an example of why that's a problem.
Heading level 3 most popular color for pet dogs and cats. Table 1, non-uniform table.
That tells the screen reader user this is probably junk.
Cat, row 1 of 6, column 1 of 2, cat. Tab, table 1, non-uniform table, cat. Dog, selected, column 2 of 2, tab, cat. Gray, selected, row 2 of 6, non-tab, dog. 50%, selected.
So you heard that it says dog, because these are merged cells, it says that dog is 50% instead of cat, which is a big problem.
Tab, column 3, no title. Lag, selected. Tab, column 4, no title. 40%, selected. Tab, cat. Calico, selected, row 3 of 6. Tab, dog. 20%, selected.
So I think you get the point there of what's going on there. Now, here is your alternative. Well, what am I going to do if I can't do that? So what you would do is you could split it into two tables. You could have cat color in one column and then percent owned in another column. You could put the dog table in a different location. You could put the tables right next to each other. And I wouldn't suggest it, but you could even put both tables together as long as you use the word percent owned above both columns. So basically, we just don't want to merge those. But if the data, like this data about cats is different than this dog data, so we don't want to mix that stuff together. If this was a student, they would fail on a quiz about what percentage of cats are gray, they'd fail this and of no fault of their own.
Heading level.
All right, now some accessibility checkers. This is what we use to make sure that our content is accessible for people with disabilities and really just easier to use for everyone. Here's our Microsoft Office accessibility checker. All right, let's use the accessibility checker. You go to the Review tab, you will see a Check Accessibility button. Click that, it'll open this sidebar. It'll show some different errors and warnings we need to look out for. One of the problems is missing alternative text. We learned a little bit about that. It'll tell you different things we need to fix. It will also, on the PC, give you suggestions on how to fix it, like add a description or mark as decorative. In this case, we need to add a description. And so we will say that wearing a tie or a, close that. And now we see that error went away. Another common error that you might see is image or object not in line. So if we click on this, it'll show which one, and it'll show that it's an inline, it's an object that's not in line. We place it in line, we can see that the wrapping stopped, but we can also see that this image in the flow of the document is in the correct location, and this is where we want our image to be. So it's okay to wrap your text around an image as long as the image is inserted correctly at the correct location. Then there's also warnings like check reading order. This goes here with our tables. We can pick one of these tables and it suggests that we add table style so it's clear what the table is doing. We can pick this one here, which now makes it more clear that which are headings and which are not headings. And here's another example that might come up, hard to read color contrast. If we expand that, it will show us text that has too low of a contrast to be able to be legible. So this is something just to be mindful of. Of course, the recommended solution would be to change the font color to something darker. And it'll preview it here for us. As you can see, the colors are changing on top of the heading. So there are errors and there are warnings. So it's good to understand what the errors mean and which ones are warnings and what they possibly mean for you. All right, Google Docs has no accessibility checker. You just have to know what you're doing as you're going along, but now that you've been part of this presentation, you know what you're doing already. But there's no way to double check your work. There used to be a plugin that you might have heard of that Google Docs could use, but the plugin is no longer maintained. So if you've heard of it or someone's like, hey, have you used this? It's not good anymore. All right, Sakai. Here's our accessibility checker in Sakai, and it is amazing the way that Duke has their Sakai set up. Very cool. Here we go. I'm going to paste a Word document here into Sakai, just using the paste command. And as we can see, it is using some bold stuff. These are not headings. You can tell because the styles pane says it's a paragraph. So they look like headings, but they're really not. But how would we know this otherwise? There's an accessibility checker in the toolbar. So if we check accessibility, it's pretty smart. It'll say paragraphs must not be used for headers. You can tell that this was supposed to be a header. So we'll mark that as an H3. You click Quick Fix, and then it'll come to the next one. And cats are furry, suggested H4 here. That's correct. You do Quick Fix. And the next one will come through, and this one looks like the other one, so it probably is supposed to be an H4. Okay, and to employees, that would be an H5, and et cetera, et cetera. The next thing it finds is that an image has missing alternative text. This is where you would add that. In time, business situation. We'll hit Quick Fix, and so on. It'll go through, and we can fix all of the issues. This click here issue where we talked about text links needing to be more descriptive. So it's really got us covered very well. If it passes through this, it's probably going to be a pretty accessible web page. Okay, I'm going to pick. And then the last official thing I want to show you is how to export for accessibility. A lot of us end up exporting our documents to PDFs. PDFs can be delete all your accessibility work that you've done. Never go and do file print, save as a PDF. All the work you did to make your document accessible, all the headings you put in there, it deletes it all and turns your document into an image. So we want to avoid this. It's the most, everyone's doing it, It's what we've learned to do for years. What we want to do in Office, this, when I say Word, I also mean PowerPoint every time I say Office, because these always go together. They're the same thing, same features and functionality. But we want to go save a copy and choose PDF from the file format. Microsoft has this engine that goes and makes this PDF as accessible as possible by using all the good work that you've done to add your headings and all of your alternative text. So I wanted to leave 15 minutes for questions, and I think we're on time for that. What kind of questions do we have?
I had a quick one, but I'm also happy. I just couldn't find on Sakai right now where the managed accessibility is. Is it in site info?
Oh, the accessibility button?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, here, I'll stop presenting and I'll go back here and
In the editor. Okay.
and show escape. Okay, so anything you saw that was like a little video, I'll be happy to demo in real life here. In real life, sometimes I use videos because, you know, when you're presenting, you just get a little overwhelmed, you know? So it's right here. It'll be the last icon. I'll zoom in here on this page. It'll be the last icon in your text editor.
Thank you. That's perfect. Does anyone else have any questions? I don't want to hog it by any, but that's very helpful. Or you can put them in the chat or just ask. There's about 20 of us, so you should be able to just ask the question if you like.
Oh, the Craggle Docs. Okay, so the Craggle Docs was one that I tried. I could be wrong. I tried it yesterday and I couldn't get Craggle to work. So I apologize if I am wrong about Craggle Docs plugin working or not. So there's someone who says it does work, and so maybe it does. Maybe I just can't figure it out. It's entirely possible because I only looked into it yesterday. Okay, are there any other questions? Anything else you want to read me to re-demo or go over again?
I guess I'm thinking about the color contrast ratio and just wondering if we don't have what is that? The WGA? Yeah, like creating PowerPoints, and are there good resources for helping to choose colors that have high contrast?
Yeah, so there's a lot of options in PowerPoint that have accessibility problems. So if we go to design, you know, this is where we would choose our what we want our PowerPoint to look like. Let me save a copy of my PowerPoint because I'm just going to mess it all up now. Just kind of, there we go. Okay. Like if I choose this blue one, this is very low contrast. It's hard to read. The best I can say is to just kind of eyeball it and say, well, that is a little hard to read. Now, if you like this blue one, you can go to the Slide Master, which is under view. Apologize, I'm kind of doing this off the top of my head on where that is. Design. So you don't have to change this on every slide. I'm trying to find that.
It was under view.
Slide
Slide
Master,
Master.
there it is. So if you go under, yeah, as you said, under view for Slide Master, I can change this to something that is a little more legible. Just we'll edit the text. Whoops. Here it is, text options. Okay, so if we go here to format shape or whatever, we just have to get to the text options. You could go in here and choose like a darker blue. And on the next slide, if you do the same thing and text options and use a darker blue, it'll carry that through on every slide after it automatically. So if you like a certain one, you can kind of edit it to have better contrast if you want to. But there's no auto checker for contrast in a slide. So I just kind of eyeball it because it's always easier to make it easier to read than less easy, as far as picking something borderline versus something that's much more legible. Sorry for fumbling around on that one, but does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
There's also another question in the chat from Dan about an accessibility guide that maybe you have could tell us about.
Yeah. So Duke has a great examples on how to do pretty much all of this stuff. And I can share that in the chat. I think if I can't find it quickly, we'll just share it after the presentation. It was, you know what, I'm never going to be able to find it right off the top of my head.
Yeah, if you can just email it to folks who have attended, that would be great.
Yeah. Here's one.
You can definitely do that. Yeah. Oh, at least put one in the chat too.
Okay, that's off of our web accessibility site.
Okay.
There's a lot of really good stuff we'll share from that's made by Learning Innovation is what I'm looking for. So Learning Innovation has some great follow-up stuff that you can read, and just terrific information, really well documented. Yeah. Any more questions?
Just doing one last check in that I didn't miss anything in the chat, but feel free to jump in. Yeah, we have all the good links too. Any other questions? I know we also, we're some of us are interested in captioning in foreign languages, so we can do a further talk about that, because we, as Joel said, you can do one or the other, and there's a limited
yeah. We had that question before we started about getting transcripts of of different languages. Or I know in English it works. There's something called Microsoft Stream, STREAM, which is part of our Microsoft Office 365 subscription at Duke. And you can upload videos there. And in there, it will auto caption, so you can have your closed captions, but it also does transcripts, and it can even have on the right side, it'll highlight the transcript as you go through. You can also search the transcript. So I really recommend Microsoft Stream to check that out. I put a lot of my stuff over there too. I'm not sure how many languages they do, but I know the English one works exceptionally well, and you can edit them there, edit the captions in there.
Well, you have a lot of people saying thank you in the chat, so that was really helpful. But stick around, anyone, if you have any more questions. And yep, let me keep checking. Yep. And yeah, hopefully we're doing a follow-up for some people in November. For people who want to do games and accessibility, we'll be sending out information about that soon. That is 3 weeks, the first 3 Fridays in November. I promise you'll have a flyer out next week, and if you are interested in gaming and accessibility. Thanks so much. And thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you so much, Joel.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye.